Okay, I think we're about ready to go. So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Systems in the City FinTech Online Conference 2020. And I hope that you're going to find today's session really informative and useful. We have a terrific lineup of speakers for you. My name's Steve.
I'm going to move straight on to the next speaker, and that's William Rouse, Associate Director, UK and Europe Business Development of Contemi Solutions. William is solely responsible for new business development in both the UK and European territories. In addition to his role at Contemi, William sits on the board of the Securities Investment Management Association, SIMA, where he meets with members monthly discussing an array of industry topics and trends and challenges. One of the questions William has posed to the group is the key points that he would like to get across is the importance around looking internally before you look externally. There is no gold standard or one size fits all. So with that, I'd like to pass over to William, who's going to talk about modular approach or Big Bang.
Thank you very much, John. I'd just like to say before we get started, it'd be nice to have I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles in the middle of that, actually.
I would second that, and I think as the host that you should certainly do that next time, Stephen.
I will, yeah. Okay, so good morning all. Firstly, thank you very much, Goodacre, for having me. Actually, John, have you given me control of the slide deck here? I do have control, brilliant. There we go. Okay, good stuff. Okay, so yes, thank you very much, Goodacre, for having me. Thank you all in advance for your attention, your patience, as well as your very kind questions at the end of this presentation. So a bit about me first. Like John mentioned, I'm a director at Contemi for both the UK and European operation. Part of my role is to continuously enhance and improve our offering to the wider wealth management market. I also sit on the board of SEMA, the Securities Industry Management Association, which is run by Goodacre, and I'm mindful that some of you are members of that too. So I've been given the opportunity to discuss the benefits, intricacies, not too intricate may I add, and shortfalls of both modular and Big Bang technology infrastructure. I'd also like to include another level to this, and that's Modular Lite, which I'll touch on later. So let's kick off by assessing what the common options are to the wealth management market at a very high level, what options you as a wealth manager have in order to achieve true technological nirvana, or as close to that goal as possible. And now I was in a meeting some time ago, and the gentleman in question could even be listening to this now. So if you are, thank you very much. You've given me a very good anecdote to get started with. We've just finished an exceptional presentation, if I may say so myself. We were discussing our open API ecosystem, the benefits of our system agnostic approach to interoperability, so on and so forth. It was riveting stuff. Towards the end of the meeting, we got onto the subject of market interoperability amongst technology and system providers. Again, you really had to be there. The comment he made stuck with me. He said, why can't you just get together and make something that works for all of us? And in fairness, he's actually got quite a good point, but the mistake he made was overlooking the fact that you're all completely different from one another in just about every way possible. So much so that there really isn't a market standard anymore. So what system selection boils down to is your immediate and long-term requirements and goals, as well as identifying where your specific strengths and weaknesses lie. Now, we as a service provider, and certainly my market peers, have all been guilty of it in the past, and that's telling you exactly what you need and why you need it. The truth is, no one knows your operation better than you. No one knows what you need more so than you. And it's becoming more and more apparent that there really is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all or a proverbial gold standard. Seemingly obvious statement, I know, but you'd be surprised at exactly how many people forget that fact. Now, the beauty and the beast of the modern day wealth management market is that you have a vast array of options available to you, sometimes almost too many. For now, we have two different system strategies to discuss, fortunately, and that's Big Bang versus Modular. So I'll also touch on Modular Lite, like I mentioned earlier. Now, Big Bang can certainly be interpreted in a host of different ways. So for clarity and consistency, I'll be describing Big Bang as a singular vendor relationship. Sorry to disappoint anyone in the audience. Whereby what a wealth management firm does is utilizes the full technology stack across the front, middle, and back office functions with just one provider, the more traditional approach. Modular, in this respect, simply means best of breed. So what you're doing is you're utilizing a variety of service providers to meet specific needs across one or perhaps a few specific functions. An example of this would be using a certain technology provider for client engagement purposes and then utilizing another organization for model investment management functionality. So to paint a picture as to what I mean by Modular Lite, and to use an analogy, my mum's always spoke to me in pictures, and that seems to work for me. Now let's say I was going to buy an old house that needed absolutely everything doing to it in order to make it my dream home, and I wanted to get it all done in one hit. Realistically, I wouldn't be able to live in it for, say, 6 to 9 months, perhaps even a year. I'd go down the Big Bang route. If I wanted the upstairs doing first and then the downstairs, along with potentially the garden, I could move in straight away. I'd move around to accommodate the works, but I wouldn't be enjoying the house as a whole. This would be modular. Now, if I was unsure as to what I wanted to do to the house as a whole, I'd move in, get a feel for what works and what doesn't, what fits my taste, and certainly what improvements I needed to make. I'd enhance and make changes room by room, as and how my budget, resource, and of course my patience allows. So I'd allow for quality of transformation as opposed to sticking to a timeline. I'd adopt the Modular Lite method. So let's talk through some of the clearer benefits. Now, we've established already that every business is different. There's intricate quirks and exotic behaviors and cultures, so not all benefits will be the same for everyone. I've generalized the most universal strengths realized by the vast majority of firms when choosing either route. So with both disciplines, the benefits are vastly abundant and plentiful, but I want to whittle these down to 3 main virtues. Again, I'm very mindful of the time that I've got. So the first one, starting with Big Bang, simplify governance. Bit of an obvious one. You're contracting with one partner. There's one relationship to maintain and have oversight of. If something breaks, there's no finger pointing from one organization to another. This also allows your selected partner to thoroughly understand your business from front to back, which in theory should yield a better service and solution offering for you, if managed correctly, of course. Standardized technology across the board, again, pretty obvious one. So there's no interconnectivity issues. One technology stack removes the potential issue around multiple systems not being able to talk to each other. Users will realize a seemingly seamless flow from front to back. Strong and stable. Like I mentioned earlier, this is the more traditional method. So Big Bang, one provider, is perceived as the more stable route to go down, a one-stop shop, one port of call, one contractual partner, and more importantly, one clear set of service levels. So this approach is a lot easier to maintain and support going forward. The obvious starting point with modular route is you're ultimately in control of shaping the systemic aspect of your target operating model. And for the record, I'm going to say target operating model, God knows how many times throughout this presentation, so be mindful of that. You're selecting the pieces that need to be prioritized, and you're building on your terms. So you're not dictated by your provider's roadmap. You're not having to conform to their priorities or their other clients' priorities. You effectively, you set your own. Adopters of the modular approach are also able to utilize market leading providers in their given field. So what you're doing then is creating a truly best of breed model. You're also able to select the pieces of technology that best support your immediate requirements and long-term goals. When I say increased system agility, what I mean by that is that it's much easier for you to lift pieces of functionality out and implement new ones without hindering the overall operation. There aren't as many constraints around what you can lift and shift with the modular approach, say, when compared to Big Bang. Again, kind of very high level benefits there. Now, sort of focusing on more of the weaknesses attached to both. Generally speaking, the most common weakness that comes with being wedded to one provider is speed of change. The constraints tend to come from formalizing upgrades and change requests across the entire client base. So in many cases, your priorities aren't always going to align with that of your peers. Again, money talks at the end of the day. Concentration risk is a big one. Adopting this method will leave you exposed to a single provider, and especially when you're relying on them for key systemic and operational functions. They may start deteriorating in a certain area of their offering, and in order to move to another provider, it could become quite arduous and costly in order to unpick the stitching in order to rectify those shortcomings. What I mean when I'm talking about priority variance is the alignment of priorities across the provider's client base as a whole, and I did touch on that earlier. So an example of this may be that the corporate actions function may not work as well for you as it does for other firms. So therefore, nothing's really going to be done unless required by the client base as a whole, or indeed you're willing to shell out some money for it, for some bespoke development, which again, and I'll warn you, system providers do like doing that. Okay, so modular side, collaboration. The issue here is you're effectively reliant on your various providers to be able to connect and talk to each other to fully utilize and enjoy a seamless operation. So one theme that tends to pop up, and again, mentioned it earlier, is finger pointing when things don't quite go to plan. So to further compound that is a matter of communication when one provider has a critical upgrade that could impact a multitude of different functions. I suppose one of the more tedious shortcomings with this approach is the need to manage relationships with multiple service providers, and that comes both internally and externally. It can sometimes sap from resource and divert attention away from more business crucial functions within the operation. There is an inherent lack of standardization. That's an obvious flaw. Using client engagement again as an example, let's say an individual opened their account with you via a certain channel, yet they're using a different channel to view their portfolio or even execute trades. It certainly can make the entire client experience a little disjointed. The same applies to a multitude of functions across the board. So onto Modular Lite, certainly something that's we're seeing a lot of demand for at the moment. And we've discussed two pretty common approaches, two approaches that are certainly used by the vast majority of people listening to this now. But one thing we haven't touched on yet, and you could argue is rather current, certainly given our present day predicament, and that's the Modular Lite model. So in its simplest form, modular, I'm clicking through, there we go. Yeah, okay. In its simplest form, this is all about utilizing absolute core technology and functionality and then building, enhancing and improving on your own terms. So the key benefits for the Modular Lite methodology are a dramatically reduced implementation period, a bespoke workable roadmap, aggressive and gradual development, all whilst in a cost-effective manner. Getting back to one recurring theme, and again I keep mentioning it, is that you're all completely unique, you're all completely different from one another, and just about every firm's operation is unique in its own different way. So your requirements are always going to differ from one to the next. This approach allows you to pinpoint exactly what you need there and then. You're breaking down the specifics within a particular module and harnessing the segments that best suit your current and long-term needs. And the agility attached to this model is that it allows for quick fixes. And what I mean by that is the patchwork approach. So what you're doing is you're fixing immediate problems, then building to enhance further within your own comfort barriers, of course. And another factor, and another more important factor, is that you're not led by what a product can do, you're led by what you need it to do. And what you're able to do is boil down exactly what you need from your provider, and you effectively have a blank canvas. Now, this approach could be really viewed as a gateway into your operating target operating model. Got mixed up there. So don't get me wrong, the Modular Lite approach isn't going to get everything over and done with in a short space of time. It could take longer for you to reach your target operating model, but you ultimately have the control to dictate every step of the way, whereby you're building and evolving on your own terms. And one thing this approach also does is it challenges the argument of getting the pain over and done with in one fell swoop. Now, this is through a quick and easy light touch implementation that progresses and becomes functionally richer as and when you choose to evolve. To use another analogy, and again, talking in pictures, again, that tends to work for me. It's like buying an iPhone for the first time. So the vast majority of the technology or the standard set of apps that it comes with, they're very rarely used straight away. To begin with, we'll use a device for phone calls, text messages, perhaps even storing our contacts. After a while, we might start using the high resolution camera whilst on our daily walks. As we start to learn more about its capabilities, we'll add numerous email accounts to it. We'll then realize our friends and colleagues are in WhatsApp groups, so we'll download that app too. Before we know it, this thing's running our lives. And that's been through a gradual learning process where our knowledge and capabilities have evolved alongside it. So to close out, I didn't want to keep harping on about a multitude of different offerings, just too much anyway. But to close out finally, what should you be doing now? What approach should you adopt? The inner fence sitter in me says, do whatever fits your organization best. I absolutely hate doing that. It's a huge cop out, I know. But to coin a chap called Simon Sinek and his methodology, is what he believes is what you should be doing is starting with why. Why are you reviewing your current setup in the first place? Is it because you need to demonstrate to your board that you're conducting regular reviews, basically a box ticking exercise? Or is it because you've identified something that you believe isn't fit for purpose anymore? Hopefully before your clients do. Again, starting with I suppose the 4 takeaways. Know your business. Again, a very obvious statement, but something that a lot of people overlook. Assess your short-term needs as well as your long-term goals. Why are you looking at providers? Is there an issue in one particular area of your operation? Then perhaps the modular route would suit you best. Are you looking at a complete overhaul? Do you want to streamline all functions into one place? Then perhaps the Big Bang route would suit best. Again, I haven't touched on the commercial aspect of this because I don't think it's too important, but how big are you as an entity in order to assess commercial viability when entering discussions with certain larger organizations? And what's your risk appetite like for entering discussions with newer, less commercially sound entities? And what are your company fundamentals? I suppose that's a very high level question, but what are the main drivers for this project? Is it exceptional service, cost saving, operational efficiency? What does a sensible budget look like? And how long are you willing to commit resource to this project? Because you would have worked on this stuff before, but 9 times out of 10 projects do tend to overrun ever so slightly. Not the case where we are, I can assure you. More importantly, what can you do yourself? It's definitely worth looking internally before you look externally. So next one, target operating model. I've mentioned this God knows how many times now, but a very commonly used phrase in the industry, and rightly so. But if you have a clear idea of what the bigger picture looks like, then your selection criteria instantly becomes clearer. Before you start reviewing where to invest, where to prioritize, and certainly where you need to immerse the majority of your focus, you need to fully understand your operation, where it is now and where you want it to be. Like I alluded to earlier, no one knows your business better than you. So start off by having a clear idea of what perfect looks like, where your inefficiencies lie, and what it would mean for the wider organization from an operational and I suppose a cultural perspective to achieve this idea. There's no gold standard. One common mistake you see it time and time again is that firms, they'll tend to follow their peers, and what they're then forgetting is that what could work perfectly for them could work absolutely terribly for you. There's no one size fits all in this space. Understanding your business as a whole, then understanding where you want to take it, should always be at the forefront of your decision making. Harness knowledge, what do I mean by that? And so this is engaging at all levels. So use the boots on the ground. These are the guys that work with your systems and certainly your technology on a daily basis. So how could their job be made easier? How could their function be more efficient? And sometimes we forget the real industry experts are certainly right under our very noses. Certainly what I tell my boss anyway. Future focus. So the final takeaway, view your provider as a partner for the next 10 years. And what does that look like? Does their roadmap align with your goals and aspirations? Are there any conflicts? Are there any potential conflicts? What does the support structure look like? Are you buying a brand? And this is important. Are you buying a brand, or are you buying an ally that will help you achieve that nirvana that we spoke of earlier? Ultimately, ask yourself why they would be a good fit for you. So, John, I didn't want to kind of harp on too much. I've gone on to the questions section now. I don't know if anything's come in at all, or it's not exactly the sexiest subject to talk about, but
no, we've got a couple of things, William. We've got a few minutes, so got a couple of questions here. One's from Clem McTaggart.
Hi, Clem.
You, as a firm, obviously advocate a modular approach, and forgive me if you've already answered this, but going back to the beginning of your presentation, what examples do you have of working closely with your competition?
I suppose, let's look at it from a higher level. So we're looking at from a modular level. So we can provide all sorts of different system agnostic tools. So we are having to be interoperable. So whether that's sitting on top of competition software, whereby we're utilizing again, I did mention it earlier, the open API ecosystem. One of the things I'm certainly doing have been doing over the last year or so, and that's talking closely with competition, keeping those guys close, and certainly talking to platform providers as well, because again, they're not going to answer all the questions out there. They're not going to particularly fix every problem that every company is going to have. So if we can complement their offering, we're wide open to those types of things. So we've got a number of examples where we're sitting on top of people's existing infrastructure. And as our ecosystem grows, that's going to grow alongside our clients as well. But in terms of examples, I'll have to take that one offline and talk to you directly about that. I don't want to give too much away.
There's a couple of questions that come in. I just want to pose one to you. You mentioned one vendor fits all potentially, but do you also recognise the fact that in certain circumstances and sometimes as a reduction of risk, a multi-vendor approach can be appropriate for many organisations, because potentially it gives you best of breed.
Yep.
And even when you have one vendor with multiple solutions, they would have to talk to each other anyway. And I understand that you would have obviously multiple relationships to deal with, but do you see that there is some advantage for some organisations to have a multi-vendor approach, albeit modular as well?
Absolutely. The reason I've had to sit on the fence with this, and I again hate doing that, is that we do adopt both methodologies. We can do full front to back. About 8 years ago, we decided to go down the modular route, and that's to break out pieces of functionality, put them on top of people's existing infrastructures. And I suppose, aside from the commercial driver behind that, it's just a show of the times and the world that we're living in, whereby, and I alluded to it earlier in my presentation, is that there are so many niche players out there who can do so many weird and wacky and wonderful things. I feel sorry in a way for the wealth management world, because you have to stay on top of all this stuff. But I suppose looking at the future, well, we are going to have to be a lot more open. We're going to have to be a lot more interconnectable, and we're going to have to again look at partnering with people we'd normally be kind of keeping out the loop. So yeah, it's just a show of the times. We've
got one final question. It will have to be very quick. This is from Prasoon Mukherjee again, earlier on in the question. Hi, William. Whilst I am personally aligned to a modular approach, however, I have often experienced these two key issues. One, more often than not, the bigger picture is missed out, leading to key innovation ideas which may have a larger time to market, not being tabled for discussion. And two, leads to a messy information systems landscape, which could run a high cost.
Yep.
What are your views in managing this trade-off?
Very
quickly, we've got about a minute or so.
I'll talk very fast. I suppose really it comes down to being as open as you can. I suppose if your partners have a clear idea as to what the bigger picture looks like for you, and sharing that target operating model, using an industry buzzword again, sharing that with them enables them to align themselves to you, position themselves within the business as a whole, and allows you to I suppose introduce introduce your providers at an earlier stage so we can actually get an understanding. Like I mentioned earlier, our world grows alongside our clients. So if they were to bring in another vendor relationship, we'd then plug that into our world and we'd look to expand. And I think a lot of firms are going to have to start adopting that approach as well, certainly going forward.
Thank you. And I think of your presentation, it was very interesting. We've got no more questions for you, and it's pretty much spot on time. So thank you very much, William.
All right, Tom. Thanks.